listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.
Thank you for listening to Community Forum. My name's Johnny Chandler. I'm the owner of KCCC 930 AM and the host of Community Forum. With me today is Sarah Jones. Sarah Jones was just recently on talking about the Americans and the Holocaust exhibit that is coming to the Carlsbad Library. Very special designation as a result of all our hard work and amazing grant writing. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So we just got done, just a few days ago, talking about the Americans and the Holocaust exhibit that's coming to the Carlsbad Library. Let's go ahead and start by recapping that again. This is a big deal. We can't let them know enough about it. So tell us about the exhibit. Tell us when it's happening, what people can expect, and then we're going to get into a little bit more detail as to some of the programs that they're offering during this exhibit as well.
Yes. So you're one of 50 libraries that got the second tour of the traveling exhibit through a grant process, and it'll be here May 21st through July 2nd. And it's a 1,100 square foot exhibit that kind of talks about the Americans and the Holocaust, their access to information, what they knew about the war and the Holocaust, and immigration and different aspects that Americans were living through during the 30s and the 40s.
Right. So I think this exhibit, as we discussed in our previous program, is really specific to what Americans experienced during World War II, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Right. And so when in school, we always learn about what happened in World War II, the Holocaust, the war. We learned about that very well, but I'm not sure that they really taught us that much about the American perspective of it, like the propaganda that was given, what the media ended up saying, and the fact that the discrimination in our country went much farther than the idea. I mean, much farther than people think, and obviously was never anything as bad as what Hitler did to the Jewish population, of course.
Right.
But I mean, that we had discrimination here during World War II as well.
Yes.
And as a result of fear, So May 21st to July 2nd.
Yes.
Right, is the exhibit open during library hours, right?
Yes, any day.
Any day is open to the public, completely free. Videos from World War II, right? Like videos of what Americans experienced, newsreels, probably stuff like that.
Yes.
Newspaper articles. And I wonder, tell me, you've seen the exhibit, right? You've gotten a sneak peek.
Yes.
Is this exhibit very heavily media focused?
Yes, there's a whole panel on media. It also focuses on the Olympics and the fears of the Olympics being in Germany that year in Berlin. Right. It also focused on newspapers and propaganda, and I think there's even a panel about Dr. Seuss and some of his political cartoons that he created.
Yeah. Weren't they trying to cancel Dr. Seuss a while ago?
He's experienced some censorship, yes.
Okay. I was like, but America's against censorship.
Well, hopefully, yes.
Well, yeah.
We should be. We don't want to be like Hitler.
and depending on, in times of war, we actually know that there's been discrimination and censorship depending on certain populations, right? So you've received this grant. Does this grant come with any money, or is it just the exhibit?
Yes, they gave us $3,000 plus the cost of flying to D.C. to see the exhibit and training.
Okay, so $3,000 is just to help
for programs
and stuff like that. Okay, so now the exhibit, it wasn't like you just submitted a grant, went to DC, checked out the exhibit, partied for a couple of days, and then came back to Carlsbad, right? There's more involved in that.
Yes, it's been a long educational process.
Okay, all right. So as a result of the museum exhibit opening, it's actually a library exhibit, even though it feels like a museum type exhibit to me. So like I said in the previous programming, way to one-up the museum. Good job.
Well, they couldn't apply for it. So.
Oh, okay. Well, let me have that. I was like, no, okay. Well, it's a real combined effort. I know you mentioned that they wrote a letter of support. Things like that. It was an American Library Association exhibit specifically. Yes. So it's meant for libraries because it's very educational.
Right.
Right. Okay. Now, the exhibit is opening, having a grand opening. It'll be open for 8 days already, but it's having a grand opening on May 29th?
Yes, from 6 to 8 at the library.
Okay. Is there going to be some refreshments?
Yes. There'll be food. There'll be drinks, non-alcoholic.
Yeah, well, I understand that.
I'll give a speech, and you'll be able to see the exhibit in detail. So.
Okay. Good. Have you written the speech yet?
No.
Okay. We pre-record here. We record at Southeast New Mexico College, and we're pre-recording, so it's not like it's tomorrow and you haven't written the speech. You've got a little bit of time.
Yes.
Right. Do you know what you're going to say, though? Do you have an idea?
I thought about it on the drive over here, so I have ideas, but
Okay. Now, part of what you had to do as a result of this exhibit at the library is you had to put together some panel discussions or programs or something like that. Explain that to me.
part of the grant requirement is we had to offer 4 different programs that related to the exhibit and topics within it. So
Okay. So beyond the idea of checking out the exhibit and getting educated on what the Americans perceived during World War II, which I think is very valuable. Like, think about this for a second. The idea that we're all so far removed from that. Right. Like we're approaching almost like 80, 90 years removed from that, And so none of us can really put ourselves in the position that Americans were living at that time. Right. It's really difficult at that point. And so I think there's a lot there. And so besides watching the History Channel, do they really get into what Americans' perspective was? I don't know. But there was a lot of fear in our country at the time as well.
yes,
Right.
yes.
And so you've learned a little bit about this when you went to the exhibit and kind of been directed on the education, right? So in the addition to the exhibit itself, you have 4 programs that you have to put together. So let's talk a little bit about when those programs are, what they're focused on, why the community should get involved in those. So go ahead and get us started.
Okay, so the first one we already talked about was the exhibit opening on May 29th. Our next one is Confinement in the Land of Enchantment, that talks about Japanese Americans in New Mexico during World War II, because up north in like Santa Fe area, we actually had
internment camps.
Right.
We had a Japanese internment camp here in the
Yes.
state of New Mexico.
Yeah.
Right. So when is that?
June 12th, and he's going to be speaking earlier in the day to the Boys and Girls Club, and then after that, it'll be 7 p.m. at PR Leva Auditorium.
And who is he?
Victor, he is up in the Santa Fe, Albuquerque area, and he is he had a project on the Confinement in the Land of Enchantment project. So he'll be discussing that project, highlighting the stories of over 6,000 Japanese Americans who were held during World War II. It sites in Santa Fe, Lordsburg, Fort Santon, and Old Ranton Ranch.
Well, so we had more than one site in
Yes.
the state. And this whole time I thought we just had the one in Santa Fe.
No, we had multiple.
No. And so is 6,000 the number of Japanese? I think they were American citizens, actually. I'm not sure what type of citizenship they had, but of Japanese ancestry.
Right. They look different than us.
Yeah, that's all. Is that all that mattered back then?
Yes, because I think a lot of it was with war, Americans were afraid of foreigners and they didn't know who was a threat. There was a lot of talk about spies. So there was a fear of the unknown or things that were different.
Right. So was 6,000 the number that was just in New Mexico, or is that a nationwide number? Do you know?
Over 6,000 in those sites in New Mexico.
Oh,
so
in the
I don't
4
know.
sites in New Mexico alone.
So they may not have all maybe been New Mexicans, but they
Right.
were all held in New Mexico.
That's way more than I thought. And I actually consider myself somebody that knows history a little bit, and I thought they just had the one in Santa Fe. So this is going to be, and so this person, Victor, is going to be able to speak to, he's an expert, right? So he's going to be able
Right.
to speak to the sentiment and the fear, right? When you have a nation attack Pearl Harbor and Hawaii, that sparks fear nationwide, of course, right?
Right.
Similar to how 9/11 sparked fear throughout the country when it came to Muslim populations, right?
Exactly.
All right, so now, thankfully, we have matured to the point to where we weren't interning Muslim citizens or people that were Muslims, not even a citizenship, right?
Right.
Interning people who were Muslims of that religion or practice or were from countries in that area of the world. At least we matured to the point where we weren't putting them in internment camps. Right. But in World War II, we really did, right?
Yes.
And so that's going to be an amazing discussion. That is June 12th, Confinement in the Land of Enchantment, Japanese Americans in New Mexico during World War II, 7 p.m., PR Leva. That's 800 West Church Street.
Yes.
Right? Man, how did you come up with that idea?
Well, the whole exhibit's focused on the Americans in the Holocaust, so I really wanted to focus on New Mexicans because New Mexico is such a unique state, and we see a lot of different cultures and things that other states have no knowledge on. So I really wanted it to appeal to New Mexicans and that they were able to see where we are today and what our history was specifically.
Yeah, I wonder amongst all the other exhibits or all the other libraries that this exhibit is going to in the country, if any of them never are being as clever as you are when it comes to the Japanese internment, right? Because the title of the exhibit is Americans and the Holocaust. Right. So I could see that if they didn't have a library director as clever and as smart as you were, probably just trying to focus on the Holocaust only. Right. And Japanese citizens and people of Japanese descent were not victims of the Holocaust. Right. So it's a very, very European thing, a Holocaust is.
Yes.
So I think that's great. It's a really wonderful expansion of the overall perception of Americans during World War II. Right. And so very clever and probably like a real serious thing. Right. I mean, it's important to remember that history. Right. If we did not remember in World War II as a country about the internment of Japanese people, we very well could have, after 9/11, gone to that type of thing.
Yes.
Right. But because of our knowledge of history and our understanding and our growth as a society, we were able to do our best to tamp down the fear that came after 9/11.
Yes.
Right. And you're the expert on this now. I mean, you've gone to exhibits and you've done all that stuff. So, I mean, I may be talking, but you have to correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert because honestly, when we were in DC, they talked about internment camps and we have cohorts. So there's a librarian in Cody, Wyoming that's going to get it around the time, like the same time period that we have it. And she mentioned that they had a local internment camp and that they had already formed a partnership. And it was research after I attended on programs and thoughts and stuff that I discovered that we had internment camps. And I've lived in New Mexico my whole life.
Oh, you didn't know we had any before previous to this? I mean, I did have some knowledge that we had that, and when I was working in the newsroom in Albuquerque, I think we did some stories on it. So I mean, it definitely wasn't something that I grew up. I went all the way through like the 3rd or 4th grade here. Then I went to high school here for a little while. My dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around. But it's not something that I was necessarily aware of until I basically graduated college and started getting in the professional journalism environment.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that there's lots of New Mexicans that don't know about our history with the World War II and the Holocaust.
Right. We have there's a lot of shameful history with every country. There's some shameful history in America too, but that's hiding from the shame doesn't help it. Right. You know what I mean? So this is a really great way to bring this information to our community in Carlsbad, right?
Yes.
We did not have an internment camp, thankfully, but Fort Stanton and Lordsburg and all those areas, those aren't necessarily that far away from us,
Yeah. Well, we did have the Army airfield, so we did have a military presence here.
We did have which was actually, I guess, short-lived, huh? But how long was it here? Do you know?
That I don't know.
Yeah, but they left us pretty quickly. And Roswell used to have an Air Force base as well.
Yes. Yep.
Right. So the military took their turn setting up installations all over.
Yeah. Well, and New Mexico played a big part in the war too. When you think about the atomic bomb and
Los Alamos National Laboratory, the National Labs. Yeah. The Tularosa Basin, how rural we were. Right. I guess that when you think about New Mexico and World War II, we could probably do our own thing completely outside of this. We've got so much. That's such a good point. I mean, you and I have been speaking about this for 15 minutes now, and like the atomic bomb I haven't even popped up on that yet. I mean, the world was the first to launch the Trinity site, which I've been to. Have you been to the Trinity site?
No, I want to.
Right, so it's worth the trip for sure.
Yeah,
and it's a great way to be like, whoa. You know what I mean? And then Oppenheimer, the movie, obviously brought all that back as well for us recently. All right, so that's June 12th, 7 p.m., Japanese Americans in New Mexico during World War II, Confinement in the Land of Enchantment. June 12th, 7 p.m., PR Leyva. That's the first program, or actually technically the second because you have the exhibit opening as the first.
Correct.
Right? And we're moving on now. What's our next one?
Our next one is Interview with a Holocaust Survivor.
Okay.
So this one, unfortunately, is going to be online due to the museum and logistics. It had to be online. But they actually have a museum Holocaust survivor that's going to be show up and will answer questions that the museum has. The audience will be able to ask questions and actually learn about a firsthand experience of what it was like to survive.
Somebody that survived the Holocaust.
Yes.
Right. Actually physically survived the Holocaust. That's on June 20th.
Yes.
That's online, but so what Zoom and links and stuff like that,
yes.
right? But where are we getting together to watch it as a group, if we can?
My goal is to maybe the Stevens Inn and do a lunch and learn. It's going to be online at 11 p.m. that day.
11 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, definitely not 11 p.m., right?
Yeah.
We're not hanging out at 11 p.m. at night at the Stevens.
Yeah, lunchtime.
Then we'll be at the Blue Cactus, right?
Sure.
All right. A lunch and learn, 11 a.m., hopefully at the Stevens.
Yes.
More information to come on that
Yes.
on June 20th. I appreciate that. Now, is this a free one? Or are we looking maybe for a small admission price because of the lunch and learn?
No.
You got it covered?
Yeah. That's what the grant goes for. So it's all covered.
Okay.
So
Do we know what day of the week June 20th is off the top of our head?
it's a Friday.
Oh, it's a Friday. Okay.
Yes.
Friday at 11 a.m. at the Stevens. That could be really good. But it's an actual Holocaust survivor.
Yes.
Right. And this is something that there's really not a whole lot of them left.
Exactly.
Right. So this is a very unique opportunity to hear from someone who was there firsthand, right?
Yes.
To really feel the gravity of what that could be. June 20th, interview with a Holocaust survivor. Pay attention to the Carlsbad Library Facebook page for exactly more information on how that's going to get together.
Yes.
And the Zoom link and everything, and make sure that you let me know. We'll share it on our page as well. We'll make sure that everybody's fully aware of that. This is unique to the point where, I mean, this may be the last time ever that people get to hear this
Yes.
for firsthand.
Yeah. And that's part of why they haven't announced who the survivor is, because they wait closer to the date to announce who it'll be.
On June 20th, because
Yeah.
because we're losing survivors.
Yes.
Right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. We're not making light of that, of course. It's just it's been a long time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I do think that there's some exhibits somewhere in the country, maybe DC or something, at the Holocaust Museum, to where they have basically they've interviewed Holocaust survivors.
Yes.
And then have them on video forever.
Yes.
Right. So we can always have a firsthand account of what happened. So that's not always lost, which is a very unique thing for us to do. And I think they even saw a story on 60 Minutes where they were doing like holograms.
Yes. DC's got a bunch of stuff online. They've got a YouTube channel with survivor stories and different initiatives that they've done. There's another Holocaust museum that reached out that has VR. So it actually takes people through the life of somebody, and they have a lot of
actually at camps.
Yes.
Walking through as if you were a Holocaust victim.
Yes, students can wear the VR and walk through the whole experience.
Like walk through Auschwitz.
Yes.
Right, during World War II, making it, or is it just post?
It might be post.
Because imagine, whoa, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because we've all seen Schindler's List, right? And I know it's been a really long time, but what a powerful movie, right?
Yeah.
And imagine putting yourself in that situation. Oh, that's something. I mean, it's so it's unfathomable now for us of our generation to think that that's something that ever happened.
Yes.
It's unreal that that's true. And that's why it's important for an exhibit like this and for us to be reminded, because it does almost feel unreal.
Yes.
There's no way that was true, right? You look back, you're like, yeah, whatever, right? 6 million people, I don't think so. No, it was real. And the evil that was floating around that time on our planet, it's hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
So, and I could see somebody new learning it and being like, yeah, right. Right. All right. So that's June 20th. It's going to be online. Pay attention to the Carlsbad Library Facebook page for that. All right. What's next?
Our next one is June 24th. And it's History Unfolded, What New Mexicans Knew of the Holocaust. So this is going to be a panel discussion about what New Mexico media consisted of. What was the Current Argus covering? What was the Santa Fe New Mexican covering? What kind of radio stories did we see? And that one's going to be held here at the college, in the nice little auditorium that they have. And Johnny has been gracious to volunteer his knowledge and his poise to serve on the panel. And we've got someone from the Current Argus and the local. So community members that you know and love are going to talk about.
Who's leading the panel discussion?
I think I am.
Okay. No, that's great. So you're looking at myself, obviously, June 24th, History Unfolded, What New Mexicans Knew of the Holocaust. What time are we doing this again? I thought we were doing that in the evening.
We are. I tried to do most of them in the evening to give people flexibility.
While you're looking that up to remind us, let me just say, I believe the editor of the Carlsbad Local, Kyle Markstarner, is one of our panelists. Adrian Heaton, who is really a big deal at the Carlsbad Current Argus and also a local Carlsbad person as well. 6 p.m. right here at Southeast New Mexico College, 1500 University Drive. That is going to be in our auditorium 153 in the Instructional Center. I'm going to be on the media panel as well. Just so you know, I have over 20 years experience in media in the state of New Mexico, graduating from E&MU with a journalism degree, working at all 3 television stations in Albuquerque, knowing of their archives. So I think that we got a pretty deep bench on knowledge of media in New Mexico in general.
Yes.
Right. And I think it'll be a very entertaining discussion. We'll have some snacks and stuff for you guys as well. Some
Yes.
refreshments, of course, because why go anywhere without food, But so that's June 24th, History Unfolded, What New Mexicans Knew of the Holocaust. Thank you for thinking of me, right, when it came to the panel discussion. That made me feel pretty good. And we understand as journalists, myself, Adrian, and Kyle, the importance of remembering these things, and also the importance of looking back on that time in media and like realizing how it was portrayed.
Yes.
Right. So it's not like it wasn't always fair.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then there's this real fine line between like the idea of during World War II, obviously you got to support America, right? You got to support our country, but then how much do you not tell the truth just to make sure that Americans have that morale necessary to make it through something so trying for so pretty much everybody in the country. You know what I mean? So that's a real difficult balance. And the media plays an extreme role in how we perceive things. Right. And then, I mean, definitely back then when you only had a few majors, right? You only had a certain amount. Now, I mean, you can go online and there's everybody from every different perspective to where you don't know what's true or not. And the people that aren't even remotely qualified are getting just as much play and just as much publicity as the people that are very qualified and knowledgeable on the event.
Right.
Right. So that could be a very interesting discussion. Come check out the college, a real media panel on that. I think that could be a lot of fun. All right. That's June 24th, 6 p.m. right here at Southeast New Mexico College. I say right here because we record at Southeast New Mexico College. KCCC 930 AM does. All right. We have another exhibit. It's going to be the fifth program. I mean, for this exhibit, the fifth program. What's next?
On June 26th, we're going to have the Navajo Code Talkers, and Zuni Gorman is going to be the one that presents it, and she's got a PhD, and she's done lots of research, so she knows a lot about Navajo Code Talkers. So she's going to talk about the original pilot group and narrate their journey from recruitment to the creation of the first test code.
Right.
So I really wanted the Navajo Code Talkers to be involved because yet again, another way that New Mexico uniquely served the war and showed our unique culture in a way that could defeat the enemy. So.
Yeah. So New Mexico, I would say, really had an outsized role in World War II compared to the population of our state, compared to how long we'd been a state when it came to World War II. Right? We were just a state since 1912, right? Yeah. But you look at it, yes, we had internment camps. That was the negative side of it, right?
Yes.
But then we had Los Alamos National Lab that helped us bring the bomb that ended the war, right? Then we had Navajo Code Talkers that were able to break the code in the Pacific, right? Because the Japanese language was so difficult and the codes was so difficult for us to break, right? We really played, I think New Mexico played a huge role in ending the war with the Japanese Empire.
Yes.
Right? I'm not sure. Of course, we had soldiers over there in Germany.
Yes.
But when it came to ending the war in the Pacific, right, and defeating the Japanese Empire, well, we may have been the central figure for that.
Yes, I think we had a huge impact. And I think even, looking at the internment camps, which may be negative, I think there's so much positive that we served. And one thing that I also learned in DC was that there were a lot of Hispanic Latinos that were Americans, but because of the fear of foreigners went to Mexico because they thought it'd be safe. But then when we entered the war, they came back and they became American soldiers because it was their country and they wanted to fight for it. So I definitely think there's a lot of positive that New Mexico brought to such a horrible period of time. So
yeah. And it's right. So it's a real double-edged sword, right?
Right.
The war was awful. There was horrible things that happened, yet there were so many ways that New Mexicans stepped up, right, to help bring the war to an end and to close that chapter in that time of history. So we're talking about the Americans and the Holocaust exhibit, which is going to be at the Carlsbad Library starting May 21st all the way to July 2nd. We're having a big opening exhibition on May 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the library, Jalagueño Arts Park, 101 South Jalagueño Street. On June 21st, you're going to learn about confinement in the land of enchantment, how the Japanese Americans in New Mexico during World War II. That's at 7 p.m. at PR Leyva. On June 20th, we're going to have an interview with a Holocaust survivor. Look for more information on Facebook for that. June 24th, History Unfolded, What New Mexicans Knew of the Holocaust, featuring 3 very prominent local journalists. Thank you again for thinking about me, Sarah.
Of course.
And then on June 26th, the Navajo Code Talkers. That's at 7 p.m. at PR Leyva Auditorium as well. That's quite the lineup. Very unique and very, very, very awesome opportunity for the month of June and late May to really celebrate our library, celebrate our role in World War II, and to help all the people in our community understand the impact that World War II has had on our state.
Yes.
Really great job. Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to bring this to the community, and I hope the community shows up and supports it and makes it a success, and that when I report numbers back to DC, they see how amazing New Mexicans truly are. So,
Yeah, that's great. Sarah Jones, Director of the Carlsbad Public Library. Thanks again for coming on.
thank you.
You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.